The Effective Executive, the classic management book by Peter Drucker, is regarded as one of the classics of modern management. This book is a practical management guide designed to help executives improve efficiency, create value, and achieve goals. Peter Drucker, 1909 to 2005, is regarded as the pioneer of the management discipline, the master of masters, and the father of modern management. He was a professor of management at New York University Graduate School for over 20 years, an economist for consortia of U.S. banks and insurance companies, and a management consultant for major corporations such as General Motors, Chrysler, and IBM. He wrote a monthly column for the Wall Street Journal for 20 years, published 38 articles in the Harvard Business Review, received 7 McKinsey Awards, and was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2002. Peter Drucker's book bridged the gap from the industrial age to the knowledge age and was first published in 1966. The book presents the proposition that the key to management effectiveness lies in the effectiveness of self-management, a management trick that needs to be fully realized when changing from a manual to a knowledge-based enterprise. The effectiveness of the executive's own work determines the fate of a modern organization. The book also presents some concepts that are now familiar to everyone, such as employing people with longevity and prioritizing important matters, which may not be powerful enough to read decades later, but can be traced back to their origins to gain a deeper understanding of these concepts. The following are some of the main points and highlights of the book. 1. The role of the executive. Drucker believed that the role of the executive is to determine the organization's goals, planning, and organizational resources to achieve these goals. 2. Efficiency and effectiveness. Drucker emphasized that executives should be concerned not only with efficiency, but also with effectiveness. He believes that efficiency is doing things the right way, and effectiveness is doing the right things. 3. The 5 functions of management. Drucker proposed the 5 functions of management, including planning, organizing, directing, coordinating and controlling, which are necessary for executives to achieve organizational goals. 4. Personal effectiveness. Drucker believed that personal effectiveness is an important factor in the success of executives. He emphasized the importance of time management, effective communication, and self-development to improve personal effectiveness. 5. Organizational effectiveness. Drucker emphasized that organizational effectiveness is the key to executive success. He suggests many ways to help executives improve organizational effectiveness, such as setting clear goals, establishing effective communication systems, and motivating employees. 6. Innovation and value creation. Drucker believes that innovation and value creation are among the most important tasks of executives. He offers many methods and techniques to help executives achieve their innovation and value creation goals. 7. Time management and prioritization. Drucker emphasized that time is one of the most important resources for executives, and executives should learn to manage their time to achieve maximum effectiveness. He proposes many time management and prioritization techniques to help executives use their time more effectively. 8. The relationship between executives and employees. Drucker believes that the relationship between executives and employees is particularly important. He proposes methods and techniques to help executives build good relationships and encourage employees to reach their potential in order to achieve the organization's goals. Since it was first published in 1966, The Effective Executive has been translated into more than 20 languages and has become required reading for many business executives around the world. The ideas presented in Drucker's book have been a guide for executives in the practice of management on how to be effective. While management books are basically about how to manage others, this book is about how to let executives manage themselves so that they can become more effective. This book is about how executives can manage themselves. This book is divided into 7 chapters. The first 5 chapters focus on how executives manage themselves, and the last 2 chapters talk about how executives make decisions. Who is an executive? Is it that only those who manage others can be called executives? Drucker's definition of an executive in this book goes far beyond what we generally understand. In today's knowledge society, a knowledge worker may not be at the top management level of a large enterprise or a large organization, but he influences the performance and results of an organization. Such knowledge workers are playing an increasingly important role in our society. In the book The Effective Executive, Drucker also calls these knowledge workers as executives. Drucker begins his book by stating that whether an executive works in business, in a hospital, in a university, or in the military, he must first do the right thing. Being effective is a special skill for knowledge workers in an organization. Executives are not born to be effective, and effective executives are not geniuses. As long as executives follow certain practices, being effective is entirely achievable. Not only can executives be effective, but they must also be effective. In our increasingly diverse society, not only must executives of businesses be effective, but executives of other organizations must also be effective. Because the success of every organization in our society, regardless of its role in society, depends on the effectiveness of the organization's executives. What executives lack most is time. Therefore, how to manage time is a problem that executives must solve. As long as you insist on doing it, you will be able to receive amazing results. To be effective, executives must understand their strengths and weaknesses. Executives should make their strengths play, and make their weaknesses become irrelevant to the work, to focus their time and energy on the most necessary things to do things in order of priority, and other specific methods and practices on how to be effective will certainly benefit you greatly. The last 2 chapters of the book are about decision making. The right decision is the key to the executive's ability to be effective. What are the elements of decision making? Is there a rule to follow in the decision making process? Does every problem require a decision? What problems require decision making, and what problems require a fundamental solution because our system or rules are faulty? What are the rules of personnel decision making? What are the advantages and disadvantages of collective and individual decision making? Can computers replace decision making? In the last 2 chapters, Drucker answers all of these questions, and many more about decision making, with a wealth of practical examples. For example, personnel decisions, why some decisions are very successful and others are not, and what principles to pay attention to in personnel decisions. The principles that Drucker summarizes in this book, based on successful experiences and failed lessons, are very enlightening not only for executives, but also for all executives and knowledge workers who aspire to improve their management and decision-making skills. Drucker's management philosophy is all about the end result, and effective executives are no exception. In order to be effective, an executive must finally realize the result of his or her work. This result must contribute to the organization and at the same time enable the individual to develop. Drucker's management philosophy must be put into practice, because management is practice. Executives must put the concepts they have learned into practice. Because management is not about knowledge, but about action. Executives must be effective in their work. 1. Talented people are often the most ineffective, because they do not recognize that talent itself is not the result. 2. In a modern organization, if a knowledge worker can rely on his position and knowledge, the organization has the responsibility to contribute, and therefore can substantially affect the organization's ability to operate and achieve the results, then he is an executive. Executives cannot forget about standards, goals, and contributions. They must make decisions in their work that affect overall performance and results. 3. Within the organization, there are no results, all results exist outside the organization. All that happens within the organization is labor and cost. 4. The less work an organization has to do to produce a given result, the better the result. The smaller the number of people, the smaller the size, the lighter the internal work, the closer the organization is to perfection, the more reason for its existence. The only reason for the existence of the organization is to provide good service to the external environment. 5. The higher the executive's position in the organization, the easier it is for his attention to be trapped by internal problems and challenges, and not to see the external situation. Master their time. 1. The executive always has a lot of time to spend on work that does not contribute. And the higher his position in the organization, the greater the organization's time requirements for him often. On the surface, it seems that everything must be done, but in reality it is meaningless. The executive's time, most of it is wasted. 2. To find out what things simply do not have to do, these things are done is a complete waste of time, does not help the results. 3. The things that can be done by others to others, so that they can do what should really be done by themselves. 4. To avoid wasting other people's time. 5. The executive drastically reduce unnecessary work, there is absolutely no great risk. People always have a tendency to overestimate the importance of their own position and think that many things must be done by themselves. 6. Eliminate time-wasting activities. Identify the factors that waste time due to lack of system or foresight. If the same crisis occurs repeatedly, it is often the result of a lack of good mechanisms. Overstaffing also often results in wasted time. Instead of working, people's time may be spent on coordinating relationships between people. Too many people inevitably infringe on each other and become a barrier to performance. Dysfunctional organization. The manifestation of this is too many meetings. Meetings are a remedy for organizational weaknesses. Meetings should be the exception of last resort, not the rule. An organization where everyone meets at all times is an organization where no one can do anything. Dysfunctional information. Another equally common phenomenon is the improper presentation of information, sometimes with more serious consequences. 7. Senior executives can really only be free to use about 1/4 of the time, that is, he can only 1/4 of the time can be used on important matters, can be used in the contribution of the matter, can be used in the matter he should do. 8. An effective executive knows that he must focus his free time. Time divided into many segments is the same as no time. 9. The control and management of time cannot be done once and for all. They have to continuously make time records, regularly analyze these records, and must also set deadlines for some important activities that must be completed according to the amount of time at their disposal. What I can contribute. 1. Attaching importance to contribution can make the executive's attention not be limited by his own expertise, not be limited by his own skills, not be limited by his own department, in order to see the overall performance, but also to make him pay more attention to the outside world. The outside world is the only place that produces results. Therefore, he will consider his skills, expertise, role, and the relationship of his unit to the organization and its goals. Only then does he think about customers and service objects in everything he does. In fact, the ultimate purpose of the existence of an organization is always for the customers and service objects. 2. The general organization's requirements for effectiveness are often expressed in the following 3 areas. Direct results. If even the executives themselves do not know what direct results should be, then do not want to have any results. Establishing new values and reaffirming those values. An organization must have its own ideas and thoughts, or it will inevitably disintegrate, become confused, and paralyzed. Develop and nurture the talent needed for tomorrow. An organization is a failure if it does not continue to exist. Therefore, an organization must prepare today for tomorrow's successors, and its human resources must be updated and must always improve standards. 3. A commitment to contribution is a commitment to effectiveness. Without this commitment, executives are not fulfilling their responsibilities, which will definitely harm the organization they serve and the colleagues they work with. 4. Ask yourself, what can I do that others have not done, and if done well, can make a difference to the company? 5. The higher the position of an executive, the greater the contribution he needs in external aspects. 6. A executive who puts a lot of emphasis on contribution at work usually expects his subordinates to put a lot of emphasis on contribution as well. Therefore, he must often ask his subordinates, what should our organization and I expect from you? What should we expect you to do? How can we get the most out of your knowledge and abilities? With such a review, there is the possibility of communication, but also easy to succeed. 7. Emphasis on contribution helps horizontal communication, so it can lead to teamwork. The cooperation of heroes from all walks of life is important in automaticity and spontaneity, and it is important to follow the logic of the situation and the needs of the task, rather than relying only on the formal organizational structure. The only way to achieve communication is through direct contact between people, through words or texts. 8. Whether an individual can develop depends to a large extent on whether you value your contribution. Ask yourself, how do I need to develop myself? What knowledge and skills should I learn that will help me contribute to the organization? What are my strengths that I should use in my work? What standards should I set for myself? 9. Executives who value contribution will inevitably also inspire others to seek self-development. If they demand a lot from themselves, they are sure to grow into outstanding people with no more effort than those who don't make it. 10. Meetings are a management tool that executives use every day. Ask yourself, why do we want to call this meeting? Is for a decision? Is it to announce something? Or to clarify what we should do? Think through the purpose of the meeting beforehand, think through what reports are being requested, and think through the intent of the presentation. Be sure to insist that the meeting must really contribute. 11. Valuing contributions is enough to eliminate one of the basic problems of executives, getting your priorities straight in a mess. Valuing contributions is an organizational principle that enables executives to grasp the relevance of various tasks. 12. Valuing contribution, but also executives can be inherently weak, too dependent on others, and belong to the organization, into strength, and then create a strong work team too. By valuing contributions, executives can strive to make direct contact with the outside world, including markets and customers, patients in the community, and the public outside government agencies. How to get the strengths of people. 1. Executives to use the strengths of people, facing the first hurdle that is in the selection of people. Effective executives choose people for appointments and promotions, based on what a person can do. 2. The so-called all kinds of things, in fact, may be useless. The higher the talent, the more deficiencies are often. 3. The effective executive only asks, what does he contribute? What can he do? 4. Too much consideration of the shortcomings of people will affect the organization to achieve their goals. 5. We can set the organization to facilitate the full play of the strengths of employees. 6. The position should be set according to objective needs, should be determined by the task, not by the person. Why set things by people cannot solve the problem, is because any change of a position in the organization will cause a series of chain reaction. The positions in an organization are all interconnected and interdependent, and one hair moves the whole body. We can't place a position for someone and have everyone in the organization be involved. The result of setting things up for people is that for the placement of a person, a large group of people are implicated. 7. Measure the level of achievement, should be in accordance with the objective standards of contribution and performance. 8. The result of setting things up because of people is bound to produce grudges and factions. The organization must not have such a situation. Personnel decisions, with fair and just, otherwise it will drive away the good people, or destroy the good people's motivation. 9. Sometimes there is indeed the need to set things up for people. This exception is always extremely rare, it only applies to have special talents, engaged in extraordinary work, and has achieved outstanding achievements. 10. The effective executive of the 4 principles of employing people. The position must be held by people, people can make mistakes, so do not design the position as only God can be competent. The requirements of the position should be strict, but broad in scope. This is a challenge for talented people, while people can turn their strengths related to the task into tangible results. Consider what someone can do first, not what the job requires. Consider the person's qualifications, not just the position. In using people's strengths, we must tolerate people's weaknesses. 11. The assessment methods developed by most organizations today are actually derived from the assessment of patients by doctors in general. From a doctor's standpoint, finding problems is a process of diagnosing disease. 12. The only thing we can evaluate is performance. What we should evaluate is also only the performance. A person's performance, only in the context of the organization wants the person to make specific achievements, can be assessed. 13. An effective executive usually has his own set of evaluation methods that are different from others. The first step in this approach is to list the expected contributions to a person's past and current duties, then compare the person's actual performance record with this expected contribution, and then review the 4 questions. What did he or she actually do well? Therefore, which area of work could he or she do better? What additional knowledge should he learn or acquire in order to make full use of his strengths? If I had a son or daughter, would I be willing to have my child work under his guidance? If so, what are the reasons? If not, what are the reasons? 14. Integrity in itself does not necessarily lead to anything, but a person's lack of integrity and honesty is enough to make things worse. Therefore, people's shortcomings in this area should not be regarded only as a limitation of performance. People who have such defects are not qualified to be executives. 15. Only those who can withstand the performance test are the ones who can be promoted. For a person without outstanding performance, especially a supervisor without outstanding performance, should be mercilessly transferred. This is the responsibility of the executive. If he is left behind, it will affect all the staff, and it is unfair to the whole organization. 16. Any personnel appointment is a bet. However, as long as you can grasp what someone's strengths are, it is at least a reasonable bet. 17. Use the strengths of your boss. 18. Where a successful and fast promoting supervisor, his subordinates are also the most likely to succeed. 19. The first thing you need to do is to make sure that you have the right advice and that your boss can accept it. The people can be broadly divided into 2 types, reader and listener. 20. People's temperament is often the major key to success or failure. We need to be effective, to understand what they can do as a basis, and then to do the most suitable for their own way. 21. In an organization, the effectiveness of each side are the development of opportunities, the disappearance of the problem. 22. In any group, the standard of action depends on the performance of the leaders. Leaders' performance is high, and the general public also competes for high performance. 23. The task of an executive is not to change people. The task of the executive is to let the talents, health, and inspiration of each person to get full play, so that the overall effectiveness of the organization can be multiplied. Priority of important things. 1. Executives focus on one thing. The first principle is to get rid of the past is no longer valuable. Put the resources of today into creating the future. 2. People encountered a major failure. Correction is not too difficult, they can review themselves. But yesterday's success, can leave an endless impact, far beyond the validity of success. 3. Any plan should be abandoned immediately if it does not prove to be effective and necessary. 4. Review their own company is full of all kinds of control mechanism, but in fact nothing can be controlled. 5. Effective executives intend to do a new business, must first delete an existing business. This is very necessary to control the expansion of the organization. If the expansion is not controlled, the organization will become disintegrated and difficult to manage. Social organizations are like biological organisms that must be kept small and lean. 6. If the pressure to determine the priority, the result will be sacrificed many important matters. The so-called pressure, always preferring the internal affairs of the organization, preferring what has already happened and ignore the future, always preferring crises and ignore the opportunities, always tend to be eager for quick successes and the real world blind to the real world, always look at the urgent matters and react indifferently to matters of great importance. 7. To determine the priorities of the important principles, each closely related to courage. The importance of the future rather than the past. The importance of opportunity, not just see the difficulties. Choose your own direction and not follow it blindly. The goal should be high and new, not just for safety and convenience. 8. Turning opportunities into results is certainly more productive than solving old problems. Solving old problems is always just a matter of restoring the balance of yesterday. 9. Effective executives are good at concentrating their efforts on the important things in front of them first, and only do one thing at a time. The best way to effectively use human talent is to focus all of one's talents on one important task. Effective decision making. 1. Effective executives make only major decisions and focus on the results of those decisions. 2. In the whole decision-making process, the most time-consuming part is not the decision itself, but the implementation of the decision. The implementation of the decision must be as close to the working level as possible, and must strive for simplicity. 3. The 5 elements of decision-making are: if the problem is recurring, it can only be solved by establishing rules or principles for decision-making. The first step for an effective decision-maker is always to seek solutions from the highest level of conceptual aspects. To identify the exact boundaries that must be met in solving a problem, in other words, to identify the boundary conditions of the problem. What is the goal of the decision? What conditions should be met? To find out what is the minimum necessary to solve a problem. A decision that does not meet the boundary conditions is definitely an ineffective and inappropriate decision. Think carefully about what the right solutions to a problem are and what conditions they must meet, and then consider the necessary compromises, accommodations, and concessions that will make the decision acceptable. Study what the right decision is, not what the acceptable decision is. Decisions should be accompanied by implementation measures so that the decision becomes a consistent action. Who should understand the decision? What action should be taken? Who should take action? How should these actions be carried out so that they can be followed by those who implement them? The decision must also be appropriate to the capabilities of the executive. Focus on feedback in the implementation process to confirm the validity and effectiveness of decisions. We need structured information as feedback. We need digital dollars and reports, but if the feedback does not reflect the actual situation, and we do not want to look at it ourselves, then we should not blame anyone for the lack of effectiveness. 4. Decision-making is a judgment, a choice among several options. The vast majority of choices are made when any one option is not necessarily better than the others. 5. A decision is not to start from the collection of facts, but first have their own insights. The assumptions that can be verified are worthy of our attention, and those that cannot be verified will have to be abandoned. 6. Effective decision makers usually assume that traditional measurement methods are not the appropriate one. 7. To find the appropriate measurement method is not a mathematical solution, it is a risky judgment. 8. Effective executives must first require a number of different measurement options, and then choose the most appropriate one. 9. If not consider every possible solution, is biased. 10. Unless there are different views, otherwise there can be no decision. 11. 3 reasons why a counter-opinion is needed. The only way to protect the decision-maker from becoming a prisoner of the organization is to have a counter-opinion. In an organization, everyone has to ask for the decision-maker, everyone has their own needs, and they all want the supervisor's decision to be beneficial to them. The opposing view itself is the other option needed to make the decision. What is the difference between making a decision with only one option and no other option? If there is only one option, the chances of failure are high. The opposite view can stimulate the imagination. 12. Effective executives never think that a certain direction of action is yes, other directions of action are no. He will never insist on his own opinion, to his own yes, to others as wrong. The first step for effective executives is to find out why people have different opinions. The effective executive must ask one more question: do we really need a decision? Why ask this question? Because sometimes not making any new decisions may be the best decision. 14. When do we need to make a decision? If the situation is going to get worse if we continue to stick to the rules, then a new decision must be made. When a new opportunity comes along, and that new opportunity is critical and fleeting, a new decision must be made immediately. 15. Make decisions based on 2 principles. If the benefits are much greater than the costs and risks, you should act. Actions or inactions, do not do only half or compromise. Overall, this book is a very good guide to management, providing a wealth of theoretical knowledge and practical experience for those who want to become effective executives, or want to improve their management skills, is a must-read book.